Bad Religion: How We Became a Nation of Heretics, by Douthat. Narrated by Lloyd James. Copyright 2012 by Douthat. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Douthat, care of the Segalan Literary Agency, and was produced in the year 2012 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. There is almost no human action, however particular one supposes it, that does not arise from a very general idea that men have conceived of God, of his relations with human race, of the nature of their souls, and of their duties toward those like them. One cannot keep these ideas from becoming the common source from which all the rest flow. Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America. Man is homo religiosus, by nature religious. As much as he needs food to eat and air to breathe, he needs a faith for living. But, and this is the challenging word of Jewish Christian faith, so long as he pursues this quest in self-sufficiency, relying on his own virtue, wisdom, or piety, it will not be God that he finds, but an idol, the self, or some aspect of the self, writ large, projected, objectified, and worshipped. Will Herberg, Protestant Catholic Jew. The confusion avenges itself and becomes its own punishment. The forgetting of the true God is already itself the breaking loose of his wrath against those who forget him. Karl Barth, Epistle to the Romans. Prologue: A Nation of Heretics. After the great crash of 2008, Americans awoke and saw their country the way anti-Americans have always seen it: spendthrift, decadent, messianic, corrupt. The city on a hill had become a mismanaged empire. The land of self-reliance was buried in debt. Our political class had run up enormous deficits at home and entangled us in never-ending military operations overseas. Our financial elites had been exposed as reckless, self-deluded speculators who had gambled away the country's economic future and then gone begging for a bailout. And the whole mess had been made possible by Middle America's relentless appetite for bigger houses, bigger portfolios, bigger government programs, bigger everything, and damn the long-term cost. During the 2008 election season, the extraordinary unpopularity of George W. Bush made him an obvious scapegoat for these debacles, and the charisma of Barack Obama made him a convenient savior figure. By the fall of 2010, it was Obama's turn to take the blame, while the Tea Party offered a right-wing version of hope and change. But even as Americans turned the parties in and out of office, most of them understood that the rot ran deeper than the White House and Capitol Hill, and that there were trends at work that couldn't be reversed by simply dispatching a more talented set of leaders to Washington, D.C. Thus the ongoing search for more comprehensive theories of American decline. Some of these theories are ideological. Conservatives denounce liberals as free-spending socialists, while liberals denounce conservatives for championing a cult of deregulated dog-eat-dog. Some theories are structural. On the left, in particular, there is a widespread sense that America's creaky 18th century institutions are no longer capable of responding to the challenges of a polarized country and a globalized world. And some theories are, frankly, conspiratorial, involving perfidious foreigners and conniving corporations, villainous ex-weathermen and dissembling Straussians, controlled demolitions on 9/11, and forged birth certificates in 1960s Hawaii. The most potent theories, though, involve religion. This is as it should be, because at the deepest level every human culture is religious, defined by what its inhabitants believe about some ultimate reality, and what they think that reality demands of them. The reality doesn't have to be a personal God. It can be the iron laws of Marxism, the religion of blood and soil, the Gaia hypothesis, the church of the free market, the cult of the imperial self. But Bob Dylan had it right. You gotta serve somebody, and every culture does. This insight forms the basis for two of the most popular explanations for America's current predicament. One, offered by the Christian right, the other by the secular left. The first holds that Americans have lost their way because they've fallen away from the faith of their fathers, or else been bullied into apostasy by secular elites. The more simplistic version of this argument insists that the United States was founded as an explicitly Christian nation, and, like Israel of old, has lost God's favor by straying from this covenant. The more sophisticated version follows Alexis de Tocqueville in suggesting that American democracy, while formerly secular, has always depended on religion to provide a moral framework for its citizens, and so the eclipse of Christian belief has led, inevitably, to the eclipse of public morality and private virtue alike. But both the populists and the intellectuals in this camp share the same basic understanding of our national predicament. Their America is a nation in which religious faith has been steadily marginalized and trivialized, with increasingly disastrous results. Their scapegoats include progressive educators, activist judges, radical feminists, Hollywood elites, and the deophobic media. Their prescription, from the 1970s to the present day, has been a religious counter-revolution aimed at restoring faith to its rightful place at the center of American culture, politics, and law. For a time, this narrative dominated the conversation about religion and American decline. In the last decade, however, an alternative story came into its own, first as a stinging critique of George W. Bush's administration, and then as a broader account of the American situation. Against the idea that the United States has lost touch with its religious roots, a growing chorus of atheists and liberals began insisting that the United States is in decline because it's excessively religious. On issue after issue, these critics made Christian belief the problem in and of itself, casting the political controversies of the 2000s as an apocalyptic struggle between science and ignorance, reason and superstition, the light of progress and the medieval dark. Sometimes this argument was couched as an attack on the so-called theocracy that Christian conservatives are supposedly bent on setting up, thus the spate of Bush-era books attacking Christian fascists, Christian nationalists, and Christianists, culminating in Kevin Phillips's best-selling Jeremiad, American Theocracy. At other times it took the form of a straightforward assault on belief in a God, advanced by atheists who shared Christopher Hitchens' sweeping assessment that religion poisons everything. Either way, the portrait of contemporary America was roughly the same, a once great nation brought low by piety and zeal. These two visions seem mutually contradictory, but both contain an element of truth. America has indeed become less traditionally Christian across the last half-century, just as religious conservatives insist, with unhappy consequences for our national life. But certain kinds of religious faith are as influential as ever, just as secular critics and the new atheists contend, and they're right as well, that to the extent that there's an ongoing crisis in American culture, the excesses of the faithful probably matter more than the sins of unbelievers. That's because America's problem isn't too much religion or too little of it. It's bad religion, the slow-motion collapse of traditional Christianity, and the rise of a variety of destructive pseudo-Christianities in its place. Since the 1960s, the institutions that sustained Orthodox Christian belief, Catholic and Protestant alike, have entered a state of near-terminal decline. The churches with the strongest connection to the Christian past have lost members, money, and authority. The elite that was once at least sympathetic to Christian ideas has become hostile or indifferent, and the culture as a whole has turned its back on many of the faith's precepts and demands. The United States remains a deeply religious country, and most Americans are still drawing some water from the Christian well. But a growing number are inventing their own versions of what Christianity means, abandoning the nuances of traditional theology in favor of religions that stroke their egos and indulge or even celebrate their worst impulses.